They're out of place. Are you
So,
recording?
yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I'll take the first bit. So, welcome, Laura. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you for this invitation. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too, because we've known each other for a while and I've been to some of your workshops and they've always been just so incredible. I love the way that you talk about speaking and influence and presence and leadership and all of this together as this beautiful bundle. And I remember every single thing you've taught in your workshops because it's it resonates so deeply and it's so clear. So I'm really excited for you to share a little bit of that with our audience today. But before we get stuck into all of that, I'd love it if you could share your business journey with us.
Sure, with pleasure. Look, my business journey, I'm sure, is the same with a lot of your listeners. It was not a straight path. It's like it started in one direction, and then there was a really abrupt 180-degree pivot, and then it ended up in another direction. Now, that's kind of the map for what happened to me. I am three things, and other things as well, but three things sort of define me as a person. I'm a performing artist. I do dance and theater. I love conservation and being outside. And I can't get enough of teaching. I'm one of those kids that, when I was small, I played teacher all the time, or I was performing all the time. So what's happened is I entertained all of those three, let's call them strengths, going into academics, going into what I did at school and what I excelled in. And I came out on the other end kind of ready to be a conservation biologist. I wanted to protect wildlife and wild places. So I got all the way to my PhD, finished that, field worked with chimpanzees, you name it. I've done it outside. And my focus there was how do we convey messages of conservation? So messaging was really important. The container of the message, the style of the message. And little did I know that I was grooming myself for what I'm doing now, which is I was teaching and I was working for the Wildlife Conservation Society, which is based in New York City. I was working for the London Zoo at one point as well, the Central Park Zoo, the Bronx Zoo. It was a zoo-based career. And I was teaching thousands upon thousands of visitors about why they should care about wildlife and wild places. And I love Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, because this is where we get the idea that you need about 10,000 hours in order to become an expert at something. And that's where I put in my 10,000 hours of teaching and creating lesson plans and making things stimulating and really caring about how people understand messages. So then in 2009, my family and I relocate to Switzerland from living in New York and many other places around the world. And I reached a dead end. It was an awful, awful, awful first year of here I am. I've just finished this big doctorate. I've taken some time off to raise my children. They were really small. And now I want to go back into the workforce. And all I hit was a big, heavy concrete door. There were no openings. I didn't even get an interview. I didn't even get a toenail in the door to represent myself to get a job. So I was in a dark place that first year thinking, oh my goodness, what's all this for? And then a light shone into my life and I went to a Toastmasters meeting. I'll remember the day for the rest of my life. I was kind of like dressed, dressed like a tired housewife. I was fed up. My hair was greasy. My shoes were scruffy. But I won the table topics that night, which is the impromptu speaking. And that was like a lightning bolt, reawakening my performer, reawakening my teacher, reawakening the people that are me. And the rest is history. Honestly, I was like, okay, well, this is the new thing. And I focused my attention in supporting my conservation colleagues to deliver their messages because I saw around 360-degree problem was my colleagues could not convey their important life-saving messages. And this just froze my heart. And I went inside myself and I thought, I can do something about this. I have this incredible toolbox. Let me see if this toolbox, which is Toastmasters, which is teaching, which is performing, can I move these colleagues into making connections with their audiences and making their messages matter? And that's exactly what I did. And that started my company. That started my business plan. That started everything. And that's now led up to the Leadership Speaking School, where I train leaders and global change makers how to speak in public.
I love that. And I love that your Toastmasters experience was so different to mine, because I went along not knowing what to do. And I definitely didn't win Toastmasters table topics that first time. I hid for the first 6 months. I was always the timekeeper, so no one noticed I wasn't actually speaking.
That's a good one.
But I got there in the end, and it's everyone has their own path, which I love about
Yes,
Toastmasters, that you
exactly.
can go at your own pace. No one's there kind of
Yeah.
pushing you, which is good. But I want to come back to the idea that you completely pivoted, as you said. And originally I was thinking, oh, I'd love to know, how did she know the timing was right to do that? And of course, you didn't necessarily have a choice in that matter. The decision was made for you. But how did you build the courage to start something so completely different to what you've done before?
Yeah, I love that question. It was a place where, it's kind of a cliche, you reach your darkest point and you can't go any lower. I was in that pit. I was like, what's it for? So it was to stay in that pit or to start to climb out. And there was a force inside me, Melita, that just did the climbing. It was like I went on autopilot. I was just like, okay, more, I went towards the light. And that light was every Toastmasters opportunity and contest that I could get my fingers on. And being in the leadership in the Toastmasters Club, and then starting my own club in Nyon, and like boom, boom, boom. And here's the big secret that I love to talk about. I said yes to everything. Yes. Yes. And I trusted my instincts. So that's where I was just following the light. Like, if it feels good, it is good. So give me more. That was my modus operandi.
I love that idea of trusting your instinct and saying yes
Yeah,
to things and then figuring things out. And
that's right.
it's amazing when you do that, that you do figure things out. And if it doesn't go right, then you learn from that and
Yeah,
you get it right the next time. And it's
that's
just a
right.
whole amazing journey of discovery.
Yeah, it really is. And it's unlimited. Like, once you start saying yes, one thing leads to another, and you just follow the bliss. Follow it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I've heard a lot of people saying this, but I'd be curious to know if you agree that, people tend to think that business has to be hard, but what you're saying is, like, follow the path that feels good and feels right. So was there any point where you thought this should be harder? Surely I'm getting something wrong here.
Well, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to be, in a Toastmasters European Championship of speaking, and you're working. I want everyone to know that work is the foundation of everything, and the work ethic is, what keeps you going. I don't know. I can't lean into the idea of it wasn't hard. It's one of those things where I kind of, cringe inside when people are like, oh, my journey to my career was so easy. I just fell into it. No, I'm with Oprah Winfrey there. She's like, I don't believe in luck. She says, I believe that luck, or her equivalent of luck, is when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where I fell in. There was my lifetime of preparation, and the opportunity was there. So those two things came together, and voila.
And that willingness to say yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And knowing that it was right because it felt right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great. And you were saying that you started your business because you could see that your colleagues with an important message weren't able to convey that. And actually, that's what got me to start my business, because I could see other business owners just couldn't really convey the value that they offer and clearly communicate what they do. And that was really the start point for me, is that, okay, well, that's what I can help with. So when you started that, where did you start? Was it really with the voice, the delivery, the message, or a whole package? Or what made you think this is the bit that I'm going to start with to help them?
Yeah. Well, I was watching which boxes they were ticking when they were fumbling around on stage. A lot of the people that I saw were coming back from field missions and were delivering these brown bag lectures, talking about the experiences and what's going on in the front line. And in the audience, like, I couldn't switch off that performer critic. And I was checking off the box of, okay, their backs are turned towards the audience when they're talking about their PowerPoint slides. Check. They're mumbling. Check. They aren't using their hand. They're standing like this the whole time. Check. So I saw what the three elements of performance are, which are presence, voice, and body, and how each person that I was watching was failing at representing these things powerfully enough for that message to stay in the room. And then I thought to myself, well, with the tools that I know, let me help them elevate the presence. Let me help them elevate the voice. Let me help them elevate this body. So the body brain wakes up. And I started it with an experiment. It was a club in a large conservation organization in Switzerland. And I wanted to try it out. And I charged like 100 francs for like the whole year. I just wanted bodies, to experiment with. And there I was playing with the format of what I did in my conservation education and all those zoos that I worked in with kids. And then I made it adult, and then I made it conservation focused. So the whole tagline was communicating environment, how to promote conservation through effective public speaking. So I knew where I needed to go in based on the tinkering I did in my laboratory that year.
So when it comes, if there's someone who is not a natural public speaker, they have something that they really want to share, but they don't know where to start. Is there one thing you think, like, just change this one thing and it's already going to unlock everything else? Or is it really a case of taking a big step back and working through the whole package?
The true answer is both. But that one thing, if I had to put my finger on it, is love. When you come from a place of love, that is what I call the heart space. When that is doing the talking, then magically presence falls into place, voice falls into place, and body falls into place. The whole package, your whole instrument is working because your heart center is pouring itself out into the audience. And this is different, Melita, from the head space, which is where we see most people talking from these days, especially, and in a very vivid representation online. We literally see talking heads in that rectangle. So there it's like, it's facts, it's knowledge, it's information, but you could read an essay about the same thing and, get that same information. You're not feeling anything. It doesn't touch you as a listener because it's not coming from the speaker's point of view, from their heart center. They're not emotionally connected to the content. So it's just words. Yeah. So when you come from that heart space and you care, it's a complete change. And then on the other side of that coin, which, you kind of alluded to, does it take, doing a lot of work and stepping back? It does. That takes, the work as well. If you do both, then you're in a magical space of doing heart-centered work that feels good to deliver, because when it feels right, it is right. And you are doing work on yourself from the inside out. When you're doing all that, you are doing what I call leadership speaking.
Yeah, I love that. And I think with the heart space as well, it's not just about giving to the audience, but also giving to yourself. And I think that was one big lesson I learned from my early days of public speaking. Was I was really like beating myself up. Oh, you're never going to be as good as them. You could never do that. Or you messed up here, or that was rubbish. And of course, that's never going to get you anywhere.
No.
But as soon as I turned that around and said, well, that's okay, you tried, that was great, and started to show love to myself, then
yes, self-love
also helped me to stay in the game and keep learning and growing.
Absolutely. And that is a key, that self-love. Do you love yourself? Do you care about yourself? It's like RuPaul says, who I follow obsessively, and all his RuPaul's Drag Race. He says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Yeah.
And that really, I mean, from any performing art point of view, when you are sharing yourself and giving yourself to your audience, if you don't have that self-love, I don't really want what you're serving. I don't want to be part of that story. But the self-love and the love on top of that passion of what you're talking about, wow, you are unstoppable, Melita. Unstoppable.
I think sometimes we think if we love ourselves, we can hear that voice saying, oh, who does she think she is? Or we're being selfish in some way. And I remember in Linda Heffernan's episode, she says, no, it's being self-full. And I really love that concept of being beautiful. Kindful and self-full, and
I love that.
From the heart. I think it's just, I'd say, unlock that one thing, and all of a sudden things change quite dramatically and quickly.
Yeah. And if I can just add for a moment, It's when you are giving of yourself. We as women, we dim our lights because we don't want to intrude, or we don't want to take up too much space, or we don't want to talk about ourselves too much. This is in how we're socialized, be kind of invisible in the background. And when we're asked, or when we are as entrepreneurs stepping up to the plate and taking that center stage, we got to leave that garbage and baggage behind, because that's not going to serve our purpose. I love in the word presentation, that word has the hidden word present in it, as in being present and as in giving a present. So one way to get rid of the noise of, well, I don't want to take up too much space, and how about that kind of story narrative happening in your head, which is limiting you and blocking you, you say, I'm giving a gift. This is a gift. And that also changes the angles. It makes them softer. It gives you permission to be yourself and to not like beat yourself up about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that concept as well, because I think that speaks to introverts as well as extroverts,
Yes.
who very often, because that's the camp I fall in, and so I have conversations with others, and they really discount, oh, well, I'm shy, I'm an extrovert, I hate being center of attention, therefore I could never be a public speaker, I could never lead, which of course is rubbish.
It's wrong. It's wrong, and it's the wrong mindset. You need to shift that. You need to look at that from an outside in point of view, and then look at it from an inside out point of view. You just need to adjust yourself there. Gosh, it takes too much effort. Life is too short to listen to those stories and those narratives that hold you back. I lost my brother. He was 32 years old 2 years ago. Uh, Terrible sudden death of an thrombosis from his leg moving up to block his lung. And after his passing, I've just thought to myself, life is too short to wait. So whatever it is that you've got like overflowing in you, what are you waiting for? The right time is now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I see a lot of people waiting back for permission from somewhere. But when
Yeah.
you're your own boss, you're running your own company, it's you. You're
Yeah.
the leader, you're the CEO. There is no one else to give you permission. You just have to take it.
Take
Uh,
it and run.
yeah. So talking of which, most of the people listening to the show here now either have their own business or aspire to start one at some point. How important do you think it is for them um, to see themselves as a leader and to have that message? Is leadership, is message just part of the show, or is it an integral part of leadership, do you think?
Ooh, the message is woven in. It's the red thread inside of leadership. It's the foundation. If you don't have a message, what are you doing? This is like, I'm trying to think of a suitable metaphor, but it makes me think of, speaking without making sounds. Like, you need the sounds to hear what you're saying. You need the message to understand what's going on and what the package is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think everyone starts a business for a purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes that there's that hidden purpose that's driving you, and it's not crystallized yet, but there's still something that has made you take that first step, like
True.
yourself. It's a big thing to start your own business. Even if you have hit rock bottom, it still takes courage and dedication and intention to get things moving and to stick with it,
Absolutely.
which is always the hard part,
And
starting.
that is hard, especially as life hits you in the face.
Yeah,
You got kids, you got the husband, you got the house, you got whatever's going on with everything else outside. To stay on course, on the chemin, on the path, is hard. And there, whether you create rituals for yourself, whether you do a lot of self development work, whether you're doing something physical. I dance. I get really centered when I dance, and this is part of, my performing arts background, but I need to move my body to sort of stay focused and stay present. So whatever that is for you, whether you're baking or doing Pilates, you need to find a way to bring the energy into your life, into your body, where you can stay on the path and stay focused.
yeah. And I'm talking a lot right now about networking. I've just released my book on A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. And I think once you have that clear message that you feel from the heart, that's when
Yeah,
you really start to make those connections with the right people. You start to
true.
work with the right clients, you start to find the right partners and the right people who will support you on your journey and just be so happy for you to succeed,
That's
and
right.
will help you get to where you're going. So I think it's your message is so much more than just your marketing.
Absolutely. And you get more of what you focus on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So when it comes to leadership and messaging, where do people, when people work with you, what typically happens with that? Where can a message take someone?
Oh, we can go out of this stratosphere is where it can take you. And I get a buzz. When this happens, it's like, this is why I wake up in the morning to do this work. When that transformation, it's like a click. And the person, the leader that I'm working with is like, I get it now. And then they're just flying. But the process is a process. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when people begin to work with me, whether it's my leadership speaking core, which is my 5-day intensive signature program that I'm obsessed with, or they do my virtual masterclass, or they do one-to-one coaching with me. Those are the three things that I offer. When we're inside this working space, then it's the understanding that, okay, we're going to go on a journey, right? And we need to lean back and trust the process. And I'm the driver and I'm holding your hand. Let's go. A case in point is when I help people prepare for high stakes talks, like they're doing a TEDx talk or something. And that is a typical journey of about 3 months. That's the minimum amount of time that I will accept to work with someone. If someone calls me like a month before, I'm like, sorry, summertime, that's too little time, because it's such a process. First, you create the content, and that's where the messaging comes out. That's where you're, living and breathing for a month and a half in the 3-month time frame, what you are going to create and what you're going to say. And you're sleeping with your script underneath your pillow and waking up and making notes in the middle of the night when you wake up. It's that kind of intensity. And then once you've got that content, that script, then that phase is over. And then you begin the delivery rehearsal of the content. And that's another month and a half. So that's why it takes so long. But in that whole process, you are moving your message through this pipeline and you're bringing it to life through all of these layers of rehearsal, layers of creation. And that is the full process. You get to the other side of that and you're on the stage and you're getting your final applause after your TED talk. And you're like, I nailed that.
Yeah. And once you have that talk, then you have that. It's,
Yeah.
it's an amazing tool that you can use in so many ways afterwards.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
But I love that you highlighted the process and how long that really takes, because I remember, so what got me to Toastmasters in the first place was a series of things, but one of them was I was working in a bank at the time and I was asked to write the speech for the chairman. And I was like, what, me? And I was the head of internal communications, but speech writing wasn't anything. He had a team of speech writers, but for some reason it came to my shoulders and I thought, okay, yeah, I can do this. So I started reading and researching and absorbing as much as possible. And just to write that 5-minute speech took me like 3 weeks to put
Yes.
together.
Yes.
And I was just shocked. And up until that point, I've written a lot of articles. I've done a lot of PR. I could do these things in my sleep. So it was a real shock. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Every word matters. Every
Yeah.
word.
And it's kind of the rock and roll of communication, because
Yeah.
with an article, you can always like fine tune it or tweak it later.
Yes.
But that you have one shot. It's like Eminem. You have one
Yeah.
shot to make your.
And then exactly. And I'm curious, how did it go? Because your words in his performance, how did that work together?
Great, actually.
Yeah.
And well, I didn't actually see the final performance because I was in Geneva. It was going to be in Dubai. But when I sent it through to him, and I studied him and his speech style as well, and I put it all together, and I was like, oh, what's he going to say? This, he's going to just say, who wrote this, and rip it up or whatever. But he changed one word. And I was like, yes.
Wow.
I was
That's
so
a testament to your skill. That's amazing.
Thank you. Well, since then, I've written speeches for like CEO and chairman of Nestle and UN, and it's
Brilliant.
not my favorite thing, writing speeches for other people that don't have a message that I resonate with necessarily. I know the speeches I personally worked on, I did, but it wasn't something that I wanted to pursue. But yeah, that understanding that process was just really interesting, and it taught me a lot actually about what it takes to persuade, to inspire, to motivate, to move people.
Yep.
do something just through the power of your words. And it's
I
just the most
mean,
incredible.
wars can start and end because of words. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And I love to say, I love hearing that story from you. And I like to say that words are little energy parcels, and your job as a speaker is to open the parcel to reveal the meaning of the word. Ah,
Ooh,
so in those words that you created for that chairman, those were little energy parcels, and it was his job now to bring them to life.
yeah. I like that concept.
Yeah.
So we started out and you were explaining how your career, just like most people, hasn't gone quite on this smooth path. It's been had its pivots along the way. What's next for your business? You seem pretty fixed and settled and everything's working. Is there anywhere else that you'd want to go and explore next?
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm continuing to say yes, but there you reach a point in busyness, and as a solopreneur, it's like there's only so much you can do. So I'm really picky about the projects that I say yes to, because I give them my all, and I don't do anything half-assed. So what I'm working on is I'm doing my fourth TEDx talk in October.
That's
I
very
was just
exciting.
I was just confirmed yesterday. I was like, oh my God. I can't wait, because I'm a lifelong learner, and I have so much more that I want to try out on that stage. And I'm really grateful that I was given an opportunity to do it again, because in the TED organization, they're like, no, you can't do more than X amounts of talks. But the event coordinators were like, no, but we want Dr. Penn. So they fought for me, which I really appreciate. So that is on the horizon. I'm doing work with United Nations right now, which is blowing my mind. I love it. This is, the place for leaders and change makers. And I'm doing a lot of transformation work there. So there's some projects there. Look, I'm saying yes to projects that just light my fire. I'm continuing to do that. And now with my picking and choosiness, I can really just go for my gold. So that's what's next for me. I want more people to join Leadership Speaking Core. And I'm working on a lot of marketing for that, to bring more people into this world. I've got 21 alums so far. And these people, their lives have been changed. I want to keep doing that work. This is what I live and breathe for. So yeah, there's a lot of flickers on my horizon of things that I'm looking forward to continuing with.
Mm. I love that. And I love that it's really, you've taken that courage, you've built out your expertise, said yes, explored, but stayed really focused on
Yeah,
what lights you up, and that the opportunities are still coming, there is no
true.
there's no dead end there. It's like, okay, well, what else can I be using,
Yeah,
becoming a change
yeah,
for yourself through that process?
exactly. And like I said earlier in our talk, one thing leads to another. So as you all know, I mean, when one door opens, no, what's the expression? When a door opens, no, when a door closes, a window opens. Stay alert for those opening windows,
Yeah.
and go in when the light from there calls you. So yeah, there's so much to live for. There's so much to do. There's so much legacy work. I think this is another piece maybe to the puzzle of your listeners. When it's not just about your message, it's not just about, well, what's my message? What am I doing? It's, what legacy do I want to leave in the world?
Mm.
What am I leaving behind? When all this is said and done, like what's going to stay there? Like your book is a legacy. All the transformation you're doing with all your clients are legacies. This is soul work. And when you're doing soul work, which is legacy work, you're unstoppable. There's no logic to it. It's just spirit. You're just guided. You just go. When you're in that space, you have elevated and evolved to your highest level and to your best version of yourself as a human.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. I'm really excited now. It's like, right, where's my legacy going to take me?
Yes, exactly. It's there. It's already happening.
So, Laura, you have shared just so much value and inspiration. It's been just really packed full of wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Before we wrap up, is there any final piece of wisdom or nugget that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've been thinking a lot about authenticity
Mm,
lately. And, oh, I live for this word and for the concept of what it means. When you show up as your authentic self, you are the best version of yourself. And in everything that I've said, in terms of showing up as the best version of yourself, presence, voice, body, using your instrument. When you are your authentic self, all of these things are going on and you feel good, and what you are saying lives in the hearts and minds of the people you're talking to. So, my big piece of advice from a loving place is lean into your authenticity. Have the courage to show up as who you are and celebrate that. Because when you are celebrating that authenticity, we are feeling your message. That's my advice.
I love that. And I have to say, you mentioned RuPaul earlier, and when I watched his masterclass, which I think is one of the best pieces of training and inspiration I've ever had, he said exactly the same thing. Until you step into your own self, then you'll never be confident. You'll never make great connections. And as soon as he did that himself, he said, all these people were popping up. Oh, there
Yeah,
you are.
it changes everything.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I love that you ended on that note. It's such a powerful lesson. And again, it takes a bit of courage to really take that time to discover who you are. And
Yeah. And self love.
yeah,
Yes.
lots of self-love,
Yeah.
and to step into that and show that to the world. But as soon as you
Yes.
do, then that's when all these windows start to open.
All of them, and doorways too. And you feel good. Yeah. Follow the bliss, follow the instinct.
Wonderful. So for anyone who's listening to this and wants to know more about your work and how they can work alongside you, what's the best way for them to find you?
I've got a podcast. It's called Leadership Speaking Radio. You find it in the same place you find this wonderful podcast, in all the different outlets. And that's a really good way to enter the world of leadership speaking. And I do a lot of deep dives into what it means to speak with heart. I talk about authenticity. All the buzz things that I've talked about here are more in depth in the podcast. And then there's my website, of course, which is www.theleadershipspeakingschool, that's all one word, .com. Go there. I've got free videos that are training videos. I've got all my juicy content there. That's where you can live.
Brilliant. And your content is great. I always
Thank you.
love it. I always like
Thank you.
smile away all the way through it and just always come away having learned something.
I appreciate that.
Laura, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for the privilege. It's been a joy. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.